People love to repeat that old mantra, never go to bed angry. It's the kind of overused relationship advice people toss around casually. Something that sounds wise but rarely feels urgent. Easy to hear, easy to dismiss. But I learned violently, painfully, that it isn't just a cliche. It's a warning. And the night I disregarded it, I fractured something in my marriage that I'm no longer sure I can ever repair. This isn't a story of cheating, secrets, or some dramatic betrayal. It's about an ordinary night, a surge of rage I didn't stop, a handful of words I wish I could take back, and the freezing silence that has lived in our home ever since. It happened on a Tuesday, one of those bland, forgettable days that somehow end up carrying unbearable weight. Rain drummed against the kitchen window, steady and impatient. Work had drained me dry. A major project collapsed at the last minute. My boss had been impossible, and the drive home was one long, unmoving river of brake lights. By the time I stepped inside our house, every nerve in my body was frayed. I needed peace. I needed rest. I didn't get either. Dirty dishes piled in the sink. Our son's toys were scattered across the floor like traps. And Mark, my husband, was exactly where he'd been earlier that afternoon, sunk into the couch, a game controller dangling loosely in his hands, his eyes glued to the screen. Let me be clear, Mark is a good man. Gentle, steady, endlessly dependable. He's the one who remembers the little things, who fixes problems without being asked. But he gets comfortable, too comfortable sometimes. His job is secure, low pressure. He's content. And standing there drowning in stress while he looked so relaxed, something in me snapped. The argument began like our usual spats. Chores. Who was more tired? Who carried more weight? The trivial things couples argue about when the real issue is something deeper neither person wants to say out loud. Our voices rose anyway, sharp and cutting. Finally, he said it. You're overreacting. You need to calm down. That was the spark that ignited everything festering inside me. Months, maybe years of strain and resentment surged up at once. I looked at him, saw the annoyance in his expression, and something cruel inside me wanted him to feel what I felt. I wanted to hurt him the way my life was hurting me. So I chose the lowest, coldest thing I could. I lowered my voice, made it sharper than steel, and fired straight at the most sensitive part of who he is. I looked him directly in the eyes and said, maybe if you acted more like a man around here, I wouldn't sound like such a nagging bitch. The silence that followed was suffocating. Everything froze, the rain, the TV, even the air. The anger drained from his face instantly, replaced by something I had never seen on him before. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fury. It was a full emotional shutdown. His eyes, those warm, gentle eyes I had fallen for, went blank, like someone had switched off the light inside him. He set the controller on the table with unsettling calm, stood up without speaking, and walked out. Moments later, the guest room door closed with a soft but devastating click. Any fleeting sense of victory I felt, if it could even be called that, curled into a cold pit of dread. I stood alone in that messy living room, hearing my own cruelty echo back at me, and I had never felt so small. The next morning, I moved around the house like I was walking on glass, hoping maybe the night had blurred into something forgettable. But when he walked into the kitchen, that hope shattered. He greeted me politely, made his coffee, said the bare minimum, but he didn't meet my eyes. Not once. He looked past me, through me, around me, like I had become background noise. And it stayed that way. We still share a home. We even share a bed again. He returned after a week. But the intimacy is gone. Conversations are mechanical, functional. The man who used to wrap his arm around my waist, whisper dumb jokes just to make me laugh. He has disappeared behind a wall I built myself.
Eva apologized.
Again and again. I've explained, tried to tell him it was frustration, not truth. He nods politely and says, it's fine, but it isn't fine. Not even close. When he says it, all I hear is everything we lost. I hear the emptiness in his voice, the part of him that shut down because I attacked something sacred in him. Not his actions, his identity. His belonging in this family. I shattered something tender and essential. Sometimes I watch him from a distance when he's outside playing with our son. His laughter will float across the yard, warm and familiar, and for a moment I see the man I married. But the second he notices I'm watching, the shutters slam shut. The light disappears. His face goes neutral. I am living with the ghost of my husband. People claim that words don't hurt, that they're harmless compared to actions. But they're wrong. Words carve. Words scar. Words can split the foundation of a marriage in a single breath. And with one reckless sentence, I cut deeper than I ever intended. Now I'm left wondering whether the damage I caused can ever truly heal.